What is up, everybody? Happy Monday to you. Uh, wow, what a Monday. What a Monday. It was announced that Jacob Rothchild had passed on. And, it's interesting. You know, it's interesting when, people, pass on. And now we're in this age of social media where now you can really see how the general public really feels about the person who is no longer with us. And it is just amazing how many people are celebrating the death of Jacob Rothschild. And, you know, it goes back to that scripture at Ecclesiastes 7:1 where it talks about the day that we are that we die is actually more significant than the day that we were born. And really that's because we don't have any type of debts when we're children, right? We're pretty much at our purest state. And obviously, a lot of these Satanists, they think that they can purify their sins by robbing the purity of children in their satanic rituals. But getting back, the Rothschild dynasty, which is an extension of various different monarchies and of all nations, I would say. And obviously, there's been accusations of them obviously being associated with Freemasonry, and they were also integral in the start of what we know now today to be the State of Israel. So, but it's interesting to see people celebrating this man's death. I am not anybody to place judgment on anybody, in their state of death, because Romans says the wages of sin pays is death, but the gift that God gives is everlasting life through Christ Jesus. So, I think that, there's going to be a judgment of both the righteous and the unrighteous, the living and the dead. And I think that it is God's decision what happens to that man. I am going to be very careful not to wish damnation on anyone, let alone, even if there are people who may have atrocities against mankind. I am focused on my own salvation and helping other people gain theirs before it's too late. But it is very interesting to see that. I saw a tweet, and what is the guy's name? I've seen his tweets before. I don't really follow anybody, but I just kind of catch people's stuff in my feeds. But Sam Parker, and I don't really even follow him like that. I've maybe caught a couple of things that he said that I agreed with, but he reposted Laura Loomer, who is also a commentator. I think she's a conservative commentator, and she posted in regards to Aaron Bushnell. He is the young man who was a serviceman who lit himself on fire in protest to what he believes to be the genocide. Excuse me. This is, I don't know if that's a motorcycle or a race. I don't know. It just sounds crappy. But anyways, sorry about that. But the young man who set himself on fire over the weekend, Aaron Bushnell, who was a serviceman, active serviceman, and he did this in protest of Palestine. And she says, this is what mental health looks like. So she's already given this dude the mental health card. I don't care if he's a veteran. There is no honor in supporting Islamic terrorists. Fuck him. Okay? So this is what Laura Loomer has said. Now, I want to play the audio. I'm not going to obviously show the video, and they probably have even taken the video down now because obviously this young man, okay, this is the video. So I'm going to play it.
United States Air Force.
Let's go back. I want to go back.
No. I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal.
Yep. So obviously he, after that short conversation about why he did what he did, he set himself on fire, and he was shouting before he could not shout anymore, "Free Palestine." Now, number one, war, whether you are in the war-torn country or you are a country abroad whose government is participating in a war, so therefore you're tuning in to where your money is going, and you see all this social media perspective of what's happening overseas. And, from our perspective, we see children that are being slain in Gaza. From what I understand, statistically, that area is mostly children because their parents have been obviously killed. And these are generations of kids who have only known anything but war. And then you have the argument on the Israeli side. And like I said, first of all, terrorism is not acceptable anywhere, but it is acceptable in governments. And I'm not saying this about the Israeli government per se, but terrorism has been used as a validation excuse. So these developed, military capable nations with big militaries, right? They use the guise of terrorism, a lot of times that term terrorism, to justify them going in and straight up imperializing or colonizing a particular area. And usually they have to create this narrative because most of the people in those areas are not going to willfully give up their land or want some foreign nation in their land occupying it. And this has been the story of colonization for years, and so, I think that many nations and individuals around the globe have bought into the justifications of wars being because they're fighting terrorism, when really it is them who are the terrorists. World governments are more of a terrorist threat to the peoples of the nations than any terrorist group could be. And I think what the United States is doing is we're talking about, we're fighting Hamas and we got to kill these terrorists, but we're letting terrorists into our own country. We have open borders. We have a lot of unvetted people who are not allies to the United States coming in by the tens of millions into this nation, or tens of thousands into this nation unchecked. We're supposed to have the world's most powerful military, and yet we cannot stop an invasion in our own nation. And again, I've made this argument before. This is the ingredients of the fall of Rome. I think America is falling. I think that America is threatened by the rising Eastern powers, showing up in Russia and China and some of these Arab nations. There's a lot of coordination on that end, just like there's a lot of coordination on the U.S. side. And so essentially what we see with BRICS is an Eastern allied power, an Eastern allied NATO. And I think it's going to be set up like that so that they can create their own alliance where if you mess with one, you mess with all. And it's really going to open the door for global war. And if I can imagine how it's set up right now, Russia definitely, between Russia and China, they are a military might, but Russia has huge military capabilities, right? And I think, China's going to be sort of the economic century for them, right? They've already spearheaded their digital currency. It's working, right? They got people buying stuff now, trading in yuan. So I can imagine them setting themselves up, mirroring the Western powers and how they're set up, but it's going to be divorced of the institutions and the conglomerates that have long ruled Western powers. And that's where you're going to see that preservation of the East, just like the rise of just like how Rome fell, the East, the Byzantines, they still stayed around. And I think what's going to happen is this Western half is going to slowly collapse. America is already sort of, we have the ingredients of a rapid collapse. But I think that obviously the subject matter experts, the people who have the big degrees, right, they either know what's up and they're not saying anything, or they're really that dumb because the writing's on the wall. The writing is on the wall. And a lot of people don't realize that that phrase really came when the Babylonian Empire was falling. Meanie, Tico Parson. It basically means the days of your empire are numbered. And with America, and I'm an American, I mean, obviously, I don't want to see this nation who I thought was just this strong economic powerhouse fall, but the writing is on the wall that we are doing things right now, both internally and externally, that are more devastating to the stability of America than anything. And, you know, obviously things are foretold in the Bible. I feel like that they're playing out. I think that there were certain people who made certain predictions about Bible prophecies. And I think that maybe they were uncertain of what they were seeing or they had it sort of misconstrued. I'm not sure. But when I went back and I looked at the prediction of Charles Taze Russell, for example, he made a prediction about the world experiencing that possibly it was Judgment Day or however he interpreted it. I think what he was possibly saying is that would be the beginning of the birth pangs. And I think the reason why he saw that being the start of the end, because remember, the revelation doesn't tell us that everything is going to happen at once. There's supposed to be 7 scrolls open, and this would be a succession of things that are progressively getting worse around the world, right? And so there was a couple of things that were already in play, kind of when Russell was alive. But I think that there was also some things that were not in play, and it's really hard to say kind of where Russell's mindset was. And I'm not saying that he was a credible person because there were some statements made from the organization that just seemed a bit more convoluted. But at the end of the day, we look at the Daniel's prophecy and we understand why the last empire of man, the last cycle would be that foot, because we are representatives of a crumbling Roman Empire and this rising U.S. power who happens to be a proxy to the rising state of Israel, right? And you have to kind of think about these beasts in Daniel's prophecy based off of what is really happening in the world and what those symbols really mean. So, Daniel, after he saw the statue, he saw a beast coming out of the sea, right? And it was a combination of all of the world empires together, right? So Babylon, Medo-Persian, Greece, Roman, right? And when you look at, basically the powers that exist today, the kingdoms, the individuals who have relevant royal bloodline, whatever, these are descendants of that first beast, right? But then he saw another beast coming from the sand, and it had a little horn and a big horn. Those beasts represents the United States and Israel. And it's important to understand what these representatives mean, because it tells us kind of where we are in the stream of time. And you have to sort of play chess to really figure out why these beasts are representatives of the beasts that they are. Um, and I say that to say that this is judgment generation, whether people want to concede to that or not. You can be like the people of Noah's day if you want to. I don't care. I mean, I pray for you, but I really can't, you know, save anybody that doesn't want to be saved. But I should say that, you know, it's really important to understand how people have been distracted and manipulated with time, and how people don't understand, you know, where in the streams of Bible prophecies we are. My smoke detector's battery is low, and it's not only talking, it doesn't just chirp anymore, it actually talks to you and tell you that your battery is low. So this is like new technology. I'm pretty sure they have all kinds of listening devices and technologies in there that are killing us, and I don't trust any of these people. But anyways, getting back to Aaron Bushnell, right? This young man, obviously devastated with what he saw happening around the world, specifically the people of Gaza. And a young man, he set himself on fire. Laura Loomer made the statement that she made, but here's the thing. Number one, there's no indication that this guy is mentally ill, right? Because he's taking a stand and sort of representing something that is not her, what she supports. You know, all of a sudden he's mentally ill. That sounds like a very coherent young man to me. And then two, you know, she says she doesn't care if he's a veteran. It's like, well, what do you care? How do you feel about all the other veterans who go out and because they have shell shock or PTSD is what they call it now, and they go out and they commit certain atrocities? Is it any more or less veteran? This guy harmed himself. He did not harm anybody else. So I don't understand why, you know, she would have such anger. And then she was like, there is no honor in supporting terrorists. Nowhere in his video did he say that he supported Hamas. He clearly stated that he did not want to be complicit in his government killing innocent people. And so his stand was that he was going to stand for the people of Palestine who were being genocided. And so it's very clear that he's not saying, I support Hamas or anything like this. This dude is saying, I care about the people. And I am taking this extreme measure to end my life in this manner to make a statement for these people. But really, it was a bigger statement about what these wars are really doing to these soldiers who think that they are going and they think that they're supporting noble causes when really they're supporting imperialism and the genocide of people. And I think this is where the mental health issues really come in for a lot of these soldiers, is because they know that when they went to go and do on active duty, that they were not doing something that was protecting the safety of America. It was protecting the interests of a very few people in America, and also the military, and some, you know, at the expense of other people. You know, people say war is good for the country. It makes us money. No, it makes money for a very few. And then that very few decides how much will trickle back into the market by way of people who are actually invested in the military industrial complex. That's how war makes money. If you're not invested in the stock market, for example, you know, you don't really benefit from a war that is centered on imperializing another nation as much as other people benefit from the spoils of those wars. And that's just 100. That's just 100. If you're an investor invested in military stocks, of course you're going to benefit from war in some kind of way, you know. But regular people who are not invested in a military industrial complex, these foreign imperialization wars don't really do much for them at all. It doesn't. So I think that, suicide is a weak resort. And I pray for people who take that resort. Obviously, many people are very devoid of God. And so they don't know how to get the spiritual strength to get through obstacles and pain. And so I feel for people who make that resolve, because it's a sin. It's a mortal sin. But I am not God, and I don't judge, from the lens of God. If I make judgment, I'm judging from the lens of an imperfect human. And so I can't say what's going to happen to Aaron Bushnell's soul more than I could say what's going to happen to Jacob Rothchild's soul. But what I will say is, if you're a person who's aware and you're awake, I definitely would encourage you to pay attention to the signs, because the signs do not lie. And there's a lot of things that are building up right now in the world that directly coincides with the Bible, John's Revelation. I mean, the Revelation even talked about inflation. I mean, it even talked about a time where things were going to be so bad that, the cost of everyday things like bread was going to be just skyrocketed high. And so, John was making that parable that there's going to be some things that are happening on mankind, with mankind, that's going to be on a global scale. So when people make the argument, oh, we've always had wars, we've always had this, when you think about even, the what was labeled world wars, it was really multiple countries fighting the same conflict against, a defined enemy, right? But usually you had pockets of these countries. I mean, you didn't have the United States being bombed during these wars. You didn't have Canada being bombed during these World War I, World War II. You really just had, this stuff was popping off in Europe mostly, right? But John's Revelation talks about a time where every single nation would be at war. There would be sort of these axis of powers where every single nation would be rising against each nation. And so when you look at Western powers, obviously you have the old European powers, you have America, you have Canada, right? But then you have like this new breed, which is, you have China, you have the Arab nations, right? India is on the fence, but if stuff gets to popping, India is going to protect their interests, and there's no way in hell India is going to go against Russia and China. So you have these Eastern powers against these Western powers, and really, Russia and China has a very strategic positioning against all of the Western nations. They could either bomb the shit out of like basically the whole East they all just decide to move at the same time on the East, and they don't care, or it's going to be one of those things where, we may see rockets, red glares again in this country, and the bombs bursting in air. Yeah, they're gonna be really singing the Star Spangled Banner when stuff like that happens, because outside of 9/11 and our domestic wars, we haven't really had a lot of, wars in our homelands, like from foreign nations, right? We got hit in 9/11, And even then, that's people have their opinions about that. But we haven't really had war on our homeland outside of fighting with each other, like, which is standard in all empires. But this round of global war is going to be different. And it's going to be different also because right now you have multiple nations, both on the East and the West, who have militarized themselves in a way where you don't really need a large army these days. You really don't need a large army to take out populations. You could have ops and agents. You can start with biological weapons first, and then you can slowly start wiping populations out with attacks. And so there's so many ways to kill massive amounts of people these days. They fine-tuned the art of warfare. They have biological weapons now. They have all kinds of other weaponry that hits the biological weapons. To me, are the worst, because as opposed to a bomb instantly killing you, you have this biological weapon that is slowly eating you alive and killing you. So it's a very inhumane way to take out massive amounts of populations. And they've tested a lot of these biological weapons on populations globally, and obviously they blamed it on the leaders. But there's so many ways for mankind to kill each other now without even really having to go to war like crazy. And that's the messed up thing about it. Our capabilities to kill each other is really at maximum heights. And never has there been a time in mankind's history where multiple developed nations are capable of maximum destruction. And so the buildup of some of these foreign wars right now should be something that everybody should be paying attention to, because I think that when you start seeing certain things happening, you're seeing a buildup of things that really actually coincide with the prophecies. And you got to be able to look at those things to be able to kind of see the signs, pay attention to them, so that you can start operating with consciousness. So I didn't expect for this to be as long as it was, but hopefully this information was useful to you guys. And we're just going to keep it moving. I mean, nothing that is going on right now is within our control. And obviously, even down to Bible prophecy, nobody knows the day or the hour but God, right? The world could end tomorrow. It could end next year, 3 years from now, 12 years from now. We don't know. But true believers are definitely being on alert as we look at these signs, and we kind of look at some of these global kingdoms, and their conflicts that are brewing amongst them. And we're definitely looking at Israel right now, because I think, sort of this conflict with Israel in relation to Gaza, right? I mean, there's some mockery going on there that I think is going to really start the fire, if you will, with that nation. I definitely don't think Israel should have did what they did, because I think that it's really about to start some global military campaigns that are all over the place. It's going to be all over the place, because I think, if I could predict this, I could say that they're going to finish the job in Israel. Like, they're going to find all kinds of ways to subvert and destruct people, but they are going to wipe out those people. And obviously, they're going to blame it on some jihadi thing. They're going to sell it to the public as if these people, it's going to be some story that kind of takes the heat off of Israel. But those people are going to be wiped out. And if they're not wiped out, then, obviously Egypt is going to open their borders out of the kindness of their hearts. But I don't think that nobody really has these people's back. Like Egypt is not letting these people in, And, there's only one option for these people. And unfortunately, it's death or figure out a way to get the fuck out of there. And it's sad, but that's just what it is, because they're going to finish that campaign and they're going to occupy the territory. And the reason why if I can guess the timeline on everything, I would say, like, okay, they're going to build up that area. I think they're going to rebuild the area. And I think that they're going to exist in that sense of peace, right? But I think that is when the Arab nations, empowered by Russia, is going to move on Israel. And when they move on Israel, obviously that's going to start the Western powers to respond. And while they are responding to Israel, I do believe that they have a 2-point strategy to attack America. And I think that America, with these open borders, we are going to be very regretful of that. Because I do believe that there are going to be a number of terrorist attacks on the homeland because of what the Biden administration has allowed for the last almost 4 years. So it's going to be an interesting time. Or the last 4 years, yeah. Dang year. So it's going to be an interesting time. I would say keep your prayers up. I think it will get a bit volatile. I think that we're going to start seeing tensions between first the citizens and the immigrants. I do believe that the market wants Donald Trump to win. They perceive him as being somebody who can stabilize at least the market and stabilize the consumer people a bit. But I think that if Trump doesn't win, and it's almost being so like he has to win. I think he's gonna win. Biden, they're definitely setting up the scenario for Joe Biden not to be reelected on so many different ways. And but I think if Trump does not win, and especially because Joe Biden isn't really out there campaigning at all, and he won from his basement, and they're trying to play that same strategy because it's like, how much adrenochrome can we put in this guy? Like, I personally think that Joe Biden has brain damage, or not brain damage, but a brain condition, and it could be dementia, but I'm pretty sure it's another condition. But he's a puppet, right? And he has a whole bunch of puppet masters, if you will. But I'd be surprised if they swing the election and Joe Biden wins. Actually, I think all hell is gonna break loose in this nation. If for any reason Joe Biden wins this election, I truly believe that all hell is gonna break loose, and the markets are going to freaking go crazy. And I think that right now it would be in the best interest of the United States if that would not be the case, that Biden wins. But it does seem like that may be a possibility for whatever slick reason. And I do think that that's going to cause some level of toxic civility in this nation and across this nation. And it's just better to be politically neutral. Be politically neutral. That's all I tell people. Both of those sides are just two evils with different faces. And they don't have the best interests of people. These people are selected. They're pre-selected. They're propped up in front of people. They're giving these little bogus background stories, just enough surface to get people to buy in. Like, AOC, she was a bartender it's like bullshit. Who's her granddaddy? Who's her grandmother? You know what I mean? When you start really digging to a lot of these people, they're pretty related. A lot of these people are related. A lot of these people come from Masonic backgrounds. And again, these types of brotherhoods, they're going to look out for each other and obviously the legacies of their brothers. So I don't really think that anybody that Americans have, so-called elected was really anything short of, props. And it's like, here, pick the best of the worst. And that's really what it is. And we'll sell you that these people are really trying to campaign to fight for you. But anyways, this was a long one. I should have did a live stream. But anyways, you guys have a wonderful week. And I will catch you on the next one. And I always have to take a writing break because I go like, I literally go 1,000 miles per hour. And then it's like, I need a break. I can't write anymore. So I will do some more content on Substack, but I'm on vacation. I'm on writing vacation. So you guys have a good week. And tomorrow is election day. So obviously the kids have no school. So yay. Bye.